Zappo is an example of a startup that has a wallet, also a vault for your Bitcoins. This company is very interesting. Its founder, Wences Casares, is on the board of PayPal now. And on his board, it was announced last May. Here's another example of a wallet. It's the eWally wallet. They're part of the Bradesco incubator. Two examples of wallets, Zappo, eWally. There's also the Coinbase wallet. There's many types of wallets. There's hardware wallets, such as Ledger. So you can actually store your Bitcoin keys on a hardware device. So when you go to spend Bitcoin, you can even use debit cards. So there's a number of debit cards that are useful to spend Bitcoin. So on the Zappo advisory board, as I was saying, Dee Hock, the founder of Visa, is there, as well as John Reed, who was the former chairman and CEO of Citibank. And lastly, Larry Summers, who was the former Treasury Secretary under Bill Clinton. So the space, you can see, is very important. Lots of investment going into the space. One of the other interesting use cases for Bitcoin itself is remittance, sending across border. And this can be done without a central authority. So anybody can enter into this ecosystem. They can send from peer to peer. This is kind of how it's done in the Bitcoin world. Abra is an instance of a startup that has a remittance platform. American Express Ventures has put an investment into Abra. So, as I said, currently today, it's relatively simple for me to send you $1, $1,000, or $1 million on the Bitcoin network. You'll see it close to instantly. It'll be useful for you to spend in a few hours. And the cost of me sending you that Bitcoin is approximately 10 to 20 cents. In today's world, it's very complex to send money in the current financial system. Recently, the World Economic Forum did a couple of reports on blockchain, and one of them looked at the various use cases around KYC, around money transfer, the receiving and recording of money transfers. This will be part of your homework. Take a look at this paper. Oh, they told me not to hit the red button. Let's look at blockchain. So this is very important. If you go to blockchain.info, if you're on your phone and you want to do something other than Facebook, you can go to blockchain.info and you can see the blockchain alive and well. There's a number of blockchain explorers. This is one in particular. You can see that there's what's called the block height. That's the number of blocks on the blockchain. And you can click into a block and you can see who created that block, what miner created that block, how many transactions were in that block, and you can actually inspect the transactions. And at the top, you can see the new keys, new Bitcoins that were created and given to the miner for creating this block. As I said, there's other use cases to blockchain technology, in fact, many. A very easy one to explore is called Stamp.io. So I can notarize a document using the blockchain with Stamp.io. In fact, I took this presentation and I dragged it onto this interface on a web browser, and I created a notarization certificate that validated the authenticity of this presentation both on the Bitcoin blockchain and something else called the Ethereum blockchain. Another interesting use case for the blockchain technology is communication and payments between IoT devices. 21.co, which is the most heavily funded blockchain startup based in the Silicon Valley, founded by Balaji Srinivasan, and he is also on the board of, he's also a manager at Andreessen Horowitz, one of the managing partners. So 21.co raised $116 million to create the machine payable web. Another startup in this space is called IoT Token, very much younger, and they're creating an actual blockchain for IoT devices. The World Economic Forum created another paper around blockchain becoming the beating heart of the global financial system, looking at use cases like payments, money transfers, deposits, insurance. The blockchain ecosystem has been evolving since Bitcoin started, since 2009. And interestingly, of the top 10 or so companies, most of them are from the Silicon Valley area. So more than half are from the Silicon Valley Bay, San Francisco Bay Area, including 21, including Coinbase, and others. This year, investment into Bitcoin and blockchain companies was mainly outside of the US, interestingly. If we take a look at all of the startups in the ecosystem, you'll see what's at the bottom of this is Bitcoin and Ethereum, Ripple and Stellar at the base protocol layer. And at the top, you'll see a number of applications and solutions that are built on top of blockchain technologies. There's been a number of consortiums for blockchain, including R3. R3 has put together a series of 50 global banks that are working on blockchain POCs. This is very interesting to me, the fact that the Bank of England, the US Federal Reserve, is working on cryptocurrencies as a national currency. And one of the problems has been just trying to stabilize doing transactions with Bitcoin because the price has gone from $0 to over $1,000 to now $600. It's been very unstable over the last few years. So imagine if the US Federal Reserve creates a Fed coin and they take fiat currencies and they put it on the blockchain ledger and they allow people to transact using this Fed coin. There are many benefits, including fast transactions and microtransactions. So imagine I can go to your website and pay a half cent to read the content. Or to send an email, I have to pay 1/10 of a cent. That could eliminate a spam problem. So the Bitcoin ecosystem has inspired many non-payment types of applications, and many startups have been created recently that are not focused on Bitcoin. And it seems to be a trend of moving towards a global village. So I'd like to leave you with one question about how these decentralized financial technologies may inspire new systems. And now, not for your test, but for your homework. So you really should take a look at blockchain.info if you're interested in this space. Explore stamp.io, read some of the key papers. I'll put these slides on SlideShare for you to access. And another thing, if you'd like to come to this hackathon, I'm volunteering tomorrow to put together a hackathon at the Blockchain Center. So we're going to build some new blockchain apps over the next couple of days. Thursday, we'll have the demos. So any questions, please feel free to get in touch with me. And now I think we'll have the Q&A session. Thanks.
Boa tarde, deixa eu me apresentar rapidinho. Meu nome é Paulo Câmara, na CIT eu sou responsável por uma área chamada Digital Studio, que inclui uma equipe de estratégia digital, entre outras coisas, estudando tendências como blockchain e como a gente pode trazer isso para os clientes. And now I have the pleasure to talk a little bit with Robert. So, Robert, please take a seat.
Thank you.
So, Robert, every time that I listen someone talk to about blockchain, it's always an exciting conversation because we feel that we are at the border of really disruptive innovation. But at the same time, we know that there are several challenges that we need to overcome before we see real large implementations of blockchain. When do you think this will happen? And in your opinion, what are these main gaps that we need to fulfill before we get there?
Well, in short, Bitcoin has proven that this is a massive disruptive technology, and the market cap of Bitcoin alone is $10 billion. Imagine that. And it's not been seriously hacked. What's been hacked are the exchanges in general. So recently, $50 million was stolen from a Bitcoin exchange in Hong Kong. But the actual protocol hasn't been hacked. So the fact that it's open source, it's on tens of thousands of global machines, all the transactions are visible, and it's done without a central authority is truly amazing and disruptive. So, some of the gaps, one of the main gaps, I think, is identity. So how are you going to run a global financial system without identity? This is something that R3 is working on, as many of the other consortiums are working on. So until that's been fixed, or until we have identity not only for individuals, but for financial institutions, for governments, for machines, I don't think we'll see massive global implementations of blockchain startup applications.
Okay. You mentioned financial institutions, and we have in the audience representatives from the largest financial institutions in Brazil. In your opinion, what they should be doing now related to blockchain, and what they should be doing in the midterm, in 2 to 3 years? What should be the pragmatic agenda related to blockchain?
Citigroup created Citicoin internally, and they had a number of their people work and play with the Citigroup cryptocurrency. It's a very easy thing to do to create a cryptocurrency. You can copy the open source software and suddenly create a cryptocurrency. Infosys did this while we were on site with them. It's very quick to do that. For people to experiment with Bitcoin, turns on lights about the power of this technology. Consortiums are become very popular way to get involved in creating POCs with other institutions. This technology is about branching out and collaborating with other institutions. So if an internal blockchain is typically not an important use case, though there's some examples of that, but creating POCs, educating the workforce.
Okay. We saw this really large and growing ecosystem around blockchain and cryptocurrencies. In your opinion, because we also have lots of entrepreneurs here, startups, what are the hottest areas in terms of innovation, in terms of potential that you see in this ecosystem?
Specifically to entrepreneurs and startups, lots of exploration now going around IoT. IoT, the coming together of machines and payments, machines and locations, being able to prove that a particular drone was on a particular site delivering a particular medicine to a particular NGO. Those kind of transactions could be put on a blockchain.
Okay. Let me make a final question before we open to the audience. Recently, I read an article saying that blockchain can help to create a real sharing economy. Do you think that blockchain can disrupt Uber or Airbnb sometime in the future?
There have been a few startups trying to disrupt Uber and Airbnb using blockchain technology. Again, one of the big challenges is identity. How do you prove identity? How do you use identity to create reputation systems? These are challenges that are opportunities for startups and entrepreneurs.
Cool. So let's see if we have questions from the audience. Can you guys turn on the light? Over there. Over there.
If they could identify the organization.
Oh, please state your name and also your company, if you don't mind.
Hello, my name is João Luiz from Experience Club. I would like to ask you about if you feel some people are tired of, how can I say, I don't know if in English it's the same. We call here in Portuguese, moeda fiduciária, these normal currencies. Do you feel people around world war are using bitcoins, are tired of these normal currencies because of the inflation, all the problems that is caused by the escape from gold standard and whatever?
Great question around people getting tired of the fiat currencies in their own countries. Wences Casares of Zappo created Zappo because he saw what happened in Argentina so many times with the currency. BTC Jam, founded by a Brazilian founder, went through 500 startups. They're doing microloans, a lot to Brazil and other parts of the world. They've made over 20,000 loans, like $20 million of loans as well. And so I think there's a lot of experimentation in the space because Bitcoin has proven that it's easy to experiment with new types of currencies. So I think the excitement and the enthusiasm in the space is in part represented by people's frustration with not only the currencies, but the whole financial infrastructure itself. Similarly, I think the financial services industry is learning so much from how they could do things differently and in a better way to serve the needs of the citizens. Does that answer your question some?
Hi, I'm Jonathan from Skipa, and I would like to know if you can give us a real use case of Ethereum and explain a little bit what it is and what its purpose.
Ethereum is another type of blockchain. This is the question. And it was created by a Vitalik Buterin, who was a Peter Thiel fellow. He dropped out of college, got $100,000, created this big experiment. And you just said a use case. We won't necessarily, it's a good use case or a bad use case, but someone took the Ethereum open source code and created a smart contract and allow people to crowdsource investments. They raised over $150 million, and someone came in and stole $50 million of that. That was a huge use case, a huge, very painful experiment, and it begs caution when using these two new types of technologies for trying things out. Thanks for the question.
O Duran da CIT. Eu queria saber o que você pensa de implementações de sidechains, como colored coins, para smart contracts. É um caminho viável ou é uma deturpação do blockchain?
What do you think about this? Yeah.
Sidechains and colored coins.
Yeah.
And
Do you think this is a true path?
Yeah.
Or?
So there's something called a sidechain, interestingly. So you've got the blockchain, and then you have sidechains. So Bitcoin blockchain is created by these open source developers. A number of these open source developers at a company called Blockstream, and Blockstream has created this concept of a sidechain or a pegged chain. So the Bitcoin blockchain is a public chain. Sidechains can be permission chains or permissioned ledgers. I think they have very powerful use cases, but they're being very careful about releasing these to the public because they want to get it right, get the technology right before they do. I think there is great promise in the idea of sidechains. Altcoins as well. Altcoins is like copying a Bitcoin chain and creating an alternative chain like Citicoin, Fedcoin. These would be examples of altcoins. So I'm very optimistic that some experiments will be successful. Does that answer your question?
Unfortunately, we have,
Okay.
yeah. So thank you very much,
Sure.
Robert. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.